Poetry is believed to be as old as Africa's civilization. It lies in every strata of her socio-economic life in forms such as riddles, proverbs, incantations, panegyrics, chants, genealogical recounts, as well as accompaniment during dramatic performances, rituals, social rites, and festivals. In spite of its prevalence in traditional societies, poetry seemed to have been relegated to a distant background in contemporary times and has gradually slipped into oblivion. On today's episode, we engage with a literary aficionado who is determined to stem this downward slide in the fortune of Africa's poetry, using brilliant innovative concepts, modern marketing techniques, branding strategies, as well as media, publicity and promotional tools and tactics. He has been able to take poetry from the ivory towers into our towns and cities and is reaping huge commercial fortunes in the process. Welcome, poet, dramatist, and literary scholar, Ebika Anthony. Now, you have been able to figure out a way by which you take poetry from the citadel in the way we knew it, or we have known it over the last 2 decades, into the city, into the streets. Tell us about it.
Yeah, because poetry, it's our collective life. It has been our heritage. I have known poetry right from my childhood days as a thing of the house, okay, as a thing of the marketplace, as a thing of the village square, as a thing of everywhere. I have in most cases see mothers lull their babies to sleep with poetry.
Yeah.
That's poetry of the home.
Yeah.
I have always sat in front of my house. I have always seen poetry in front of my house. The orca is passing, and before you know it, you hear Fufuriro Bonade. That's poetry. The orca's ditty, you call it. Poetry should be a thing of the town, apart from being a thing of the gown. And the town is more important because from the gown, you get to the town. The town is bigger than the gown.
Obviously.
And so, if we leave poetry with the gown, then we'll be doing disservice to poetry. So I decided that, okay, it should come to town in a big form, in a celebratory form, in a way that we will identify with poetry. Not just the town, we also take poetry to the rural place. Because poetry, in actual fact, came from the rural place before it entered the gown. And then we now bring it back to town.
Yeah, oral poetry, like I said earlier, we can relate to. I mean, the chants of the griots back in the day, the incantation, the oriki, jalaodes, yorubas, and in every other culture in Africa.
Yes.
But when we say written poetry, being celebrated in the town, being taken to the town, is something that is new to many of us. The courage to step forward and do that which is new, where did you get it from?
Well, I grew up with the art. When I was a small boy, I was part of the masquerade culture, especially of the Benin Kingdom. We lived in Benin because my father was a soldier and he served in Benin. And there was this Ekpo masquerade culture, which I borrowed and I took to Abeokuta when my father was transferred. Yes, so at the Army Children's School then, there was the yearly Festival of Arts and Culture. And I introduced the Ekpo masquerade culture, not even in the school, also in the town during Christmas periods. And we were able to make some small money here and there. Although my father didn't approve of that, I remember that we were beaten one season because we were doing that and collecting money from people. But we didn't give up. I personally didn't give up.
Just children.
So I continued with the act. And then poetry came my way while we were in the secondary school. It was very fashionable then that if you didn't know a poem like Song of Sorrow by Kofi Awuna Williams, it was something like a shame.
Wow.
So it was a competition that you were able to recite that poem dramatically.
So you had your first interaction in secondary school. We still come to how you evolved over time. Okay. But I'm just interested because on this program we'd like to showcase innovative ideas. Yeah. And for us, a poetry festival channeled and targeted at particular individuals who have impacted the society. Okay. Either to what people would do is to write autobiographies and write memoirs to celebrate or to showcase persons who have impacted the society.
That's true.
But what you have done is to ignore those genres and just use poetry to depict the life and times and personalities and credo as well as ethos, among other things, of particular individuals. Yes. And I said, that's novel.
Yes, I do that.
That's novel.
When you,
it's innovative.
Yes, when you celebrate poetry, you're actually celebrating life completely. Because there is no way that you're talking about poetry that you're not going to bring in music and even dance.
Yeah.
So I just felt that, look, how do we celebrate our heroes? Are we going to wait for people from outside to come and celebrate them? No. We must celebrate our heroes here. We must say, this person is good in this chosen area, let's celebrate him. It's not going to be the case that one white man tells me that one of our heroes is worthy of celebration before we can celebrate him. I said no.
No,
I pick on people who have done well in the society.
Yeah.
Academicians, visual artists, teachers, business people, publishers, and so on and so forth.
Spheres.
Coming up.
You have to understand the fact that poetry is not something that is greatly admired here in our society. So one has to be very careful too.
Yeah.
That is why
How will you explain what you do to a layman? I understand how poetry works to an extent, but I don't want to assume that every other person out there understands how it works. So how will you explain what you do? You've already told us why you do it, which is in order.
Yes.
What do you do specifically in terms of this, your poetry festivals? And how many have you held so far?
I have had, almost 15 of such poetry festivals.
Over the last how many years?
Over the last 3-4 years.
Wow.
What we do basically is that, since it is my belief that poetry is of the marketplace, we try to reduce that, how do I put it down? That heaviness of poetry, that load of poetry. We try to remove the load a little bit.
A little bit.
Come down to the level of the town.
Well, how do you go about organizing your poetry festivals?
Well, sometimes I approach people. I tell them that they have done well in the society, and I would like to celebrate them with a poetry festival.
Okay.
Some of them initially turned it down, and then when I explained to them the reason why it has to be, and they saw reason with me, they gave me a go ahead to do so. And so I went to town, full blast, and before you know what is happening, people are showing their interest. They want to be a part and parcel of the festival.
After you have approached a subject that, we've been following your work and we've seen that you have impacted the society and you deserve to be showcased as a worthy role model for the society. Okay. What determines the items that you want to bring together to form the festival?
Well, it's what I usually freely do.
Does the ethos, the personality, as well as the sphere of endeavor of the subject, does it come to play when you're trying to determine what should come together to form the festival celebration?
It does, but all my poetry festivals, they take the same format.
Okay.
I have a laid down format
Okay, tell us about the format.
That, okay, I approach you, you agree.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I go to town to announce that I want to do a poetry festival.
Yeah.
Of course, naturally write letters to people for support here and there.
Okay.
And approach also various poets and various performing artists.
Okay.
You know, who show their interest. And then you come
so
up
they're
with
interested by way of what?
Performance.
Okay.
And then you come up with a program list. And to say this item is to be taken, that item is to take, and then you have that packaged, and then the festival holds. And that's why I would talk of the poetry collection as part of the festival, which is more like the colloquium of the festival.
Mm-hmm.
So that beyond the festival, it is that poetry collection that will show for it, that will live beyond the celebrant and me myself.
So the published anthology of poetry.
Yes.
Dedicated to
the celebrant.
The celebrant.
Okay.
It becomes the hub around which every other activity
yes.
in the festival revolves.
Yeah. So after the end of the festival, the book is still there for people to see.
So what kind of?
Although there is also a festival booklet that is published.
Yeah, naturally.
Aha. I mean, that tells you when the festival took place, where, the item, the keynote address, and all that. You know.
But the anthology you talk about now, I'm interested in finding out what kind of ideas will be found in there. I want to bet that you conduct some research.
Oh, naturally, of course.
What will you be looking for when you conduct such a research?
Well, I look at the personality of that person. I look at what has been of use to that person's progress.
Okay.
What has inspired him over the years.
Okay.
What are the things that he has been living for and all that.
His ethos.
From such interaction, I'll come up with some poems. Usually of a collection that's not more than 48 pages or 50 pages. You know, but because you have to understand the fact that poetry is not something that is greatly admired here in our society. So one has to be very careful too.
Yeah.
That is why I tend to bring performance into poetry. That will make poetry get closer to the people.
So you kind of garnish it.
Would naturally spice it so that it becomes fanciful.
To bring the people closer.
Okay, that's the more reason why I started Poetry Enclave. It's a private outfit.
No, we'll talk about your Poetry Enclave.
Okay.
You've been in this game for over 3 decades, I know. And I know of some of your other works through research, but we'll come into all of that. I still want to understand this poetry festival because on this program,
it is performance.
On this program, we're interested in the thinking behind the concept that everybody celebrates.
Okay.
The processes that led to the outcome that everybody's celebrating.
Okay.
Because that's where the lessons are. That's where the education is.
That's true.
And that's why we focus more on the evolutionary processes, the methodologies, as well as the procedural, systems, structures, and processes which underpin the output that people witness and celebrate. So you approached me, for example, and then you interviewed me to find out what my personality type, my credo, my ethos, my philosophy, my outlook on life and value system, etc., what they are. And then that forms the kind of poems that you will compose for me to celebrate me.
Yes.
And that takes care of the anthology.
That's right.
Which is the hub around which every other activity revolves.
Very correct.
I understand it that far.
Yeah.
What are the other activities that will, encapsulate that anthology of poetry at the festival when you seek to celebrate me?
Dance, music, poetry itself.
Okay.
Because there's nothing you want to do around poetry that you're going to bring dance and music. Chants, oral chants, written poems to be read, to be performed.
Yeah.
In actual fact, performance is what surrounds our poetry festivals.
Okay.
And it's the performance of poetry that makes it fanciful to the people.
True.
So if you want to catch the people, you perform.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, if you read poetry the way you're going to read it in the ivory tower, then you'll be taking poetry away from the people.
They might find it too stilted.
So when you bring in performance, so for instance now, the poem Vanity by Birago Diop If I come out to say, if we tell gently, gently, all that which I want they have to tell, who then will hear our voices without laughter? Sad complaining voices of beggars. Who indeed will hear them without laughter? If we cry roughly of our torments, ever increasing from the start of things, what eyes will watch our large mouths, shaped by the laughter of victory? If I come to do that, I'll be working on the emotions of people.
True. You have already worked on my emotions.
And so they enjoy that poem even the more.
Yeah.
Performance.
Yeah.
So
you got my emotion.
So the poetry festivals is aimed on performance.
Yeah.
Of whatever type. Even if you are doing chant, you perform. Even if you are doing music, you perform.
Yeah.
So when you bring performance around all that, you make the day of people.
You engage them not only mentally but also emotionally.
And they go away with a message to tell the world that I was somewhere today and I enjoyed myself every day.
And it becomes memorable for them, and the concept or the subject that you brought to celebrate becomes indelible in their minds forever.
Yes.
So, I mean, you will achieve even more, in my opinion, in my reckoning, than somebody who perhaps wrote an autobiography or wrote a biography of a particular subject and they launch a book. Yeah, you perhaps will make money, but how many people really go home to read those books? You know,
and that's
so
why.
And that's why I find what you are doing innovative.
That's why even the poetry collections are small.
Okay.
Because you
so
want
it was
people,
deliberate.
Yes, you want people to read them. You want to make them attractive to the people. Nigerians are not the type of people who read voluminous books. You scare them away in the first place. But when they hold a small book and you capture them from the beginning,
from the very first page,
then they want to go on and on and on till they get to the end, and then they put it down. And they can always come back to such, especially on a day when, for instance, you do not have money to go to the theater, but you can grab a copy of your poetry collection that you have at home to read and engage you for that period of time. So it is not just poetry for that poetry's sake, but poetry for entertainment, poetry for reasoning, poetry for intellectualism. But entertainment is the quote. Is the quote. Yes. Is the quote.
And what lies within the quote is like a capsule. The education, the reasoning, the perspectives, the various ethos that are buried within it.
So usually I tell my audience that poetry is like the onion, just like language. It has different layers. You know, you have the deep inside layer that may be very conk.
It's multi-layered.
You know, you can also have the layers on the surface that you will enjoy. And so I usually tell them that they shouldn't run away from poetry, considering the fact that in the Ivory Tower, it is poetry from the deeper layer, which is usually conk, for academic exercise.
Rigorous.
You know, but I also tell people that even with language, if you go to the rural areas, they speak conk Yoruba language. So you don't, because of that, run away from language.
No, you even enjoy it when you speak those
but it's for my own. I like to do poetry that is more on the entertainment side, that is not too deep into the layer of being conk,
of mental rigor,
that will scare them away. So even poetry from the surface, you have deeper meaning. I will give you an example of J.P. Clark's Streamside Exchange. It's a poem that even in the primary school you read, but it has a very deep meaning. So you look at it as prosaic, but it is entertaining and it has a message that is deep down.
Deep and multi-layered.
So what I do oftentimes is to entertain people with prosaic poetry. Because if you do the poetic poetry for them, then you also scare them. So for our people in the town, you entertain them with prosaic poetry.
Now,
and prosaic poetry is more in terms of performance.
True. And I've seen the kind of response that your efforts have been garnering.
it's been huge, I must say. And that's one of the reasons why we feel you merit a chair in our studio. It's whichever way you want to look at it. I know that you guys in the culture sector, the creative sector, you tend to shy away from mercantilism. But whichever way you look at it, it's genius entrepreneurial idea that you have brought to fore, because you know that you're going to make money from it, and you've put in a lot of work to it, but there's still going to be a bottom line somewhere, and that's why we feel that we need to explore that on this program, so that perhaps we could get nuggets of useful information out there for entrepreneurs, and also for creative people out there who are saying, oh, we publish books and no one is reading. But you have been able to find a way to take those books, to take those publications to the town and make it useful, and have a kind of multi-purpose, multi-usage, I must say.
Yes.
So I want to explore the process of putting together the cast for the performance. I know that you played within this sector for over 3 decades, so you know the who is who, especially in Nigeria.
Yes.
So it might not be a difficult thing for you to know who to assess.
Okay.
But there's still going to be something that called negotiation, because to bring people to come and perform, you have to pay them, you have to sign contracts and what have you.
Oh, well, to start with, when people do books and say people are not reading them, people are not buying them, I used to tell our people, if you do not provide books that the people want, then you don't expect them to read them.
You want to force feed them.
You don't expect them to. You see, it is what they should enjoy, what they think they want that you give them.
So the starting point should not be for the writer to be in his own world.
You have to think of the
but
people.
But also look at what the market is.
A writer is not supposed to speak above his audience. And speak below them as well. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to consider that if you're writing, you're not just writing for yourself. And if you think that first and foremost you're writing for yourself, but you must consider that there are some people out there that you must reach to.
So you allow your poetic form as well as the aesthetic infusions to be dictated to some reasonable extent by the needs of the audience.
You have to do that. Otherwise, it will be like a madman talking to himself.
Because you're talking, no one is listening.
It's like you just in the street, you are talking, and I mean, nobody's listening to you.
So that's
you
a
are
lesson.
Talking to yourself, so the society considers you mad.
So that's a lesson.
So if you have to think of the people, the society, then you must know that you're not supposed to talk to yourself.
But what about those
talk
who?
To them.
But what about those who say, "I only yield myself to my creative muse"?
Yes.
And what I've churned out is what my creative muse has propelled me to churn out.
Considering the fact that I must relate with some people, it is not that my instinct has made me to produce something, but am I producing that thing for myself, or should I produce it just for myself and lock it in my room?
You know,
no,
you see,
I have to consider that I am doing so for some people, so I must carry them along.
Yeah.
But I come back to the question of the people.
Yeah.
Who are part of my usual festivals.
Yeah, the town.
These days, I make sure that I catch students.
Coming up.
Like I said, I've been at some of your events and I've seen that they were very hugely successful. What strategies do you adopt?
I go through a whole lot of headache most times.
So tell us how you do it. Catch them young.
We build them from now. We establish a culture in them, the culture of poetry, the culture of performance.
Oh.
And this is bearing fruit.
So your primary focus is not the adults.
It's not only the adults. For instance, the last performance I did, the Poetry Festival, some secondary school students even performed. Even Primary school students.
So for you, it's about planting seeds, right from...
I'm planting seeds. I'm nurturing those seeds. These seeds will grow to become trees.
in their own rights.
Trees of creativity that the world will be proud of when I'm gone.
Wow. So that in essence is another accomplishment of this effort.
Oh, I usually consider, and that's why in some of our poetry festivals, I've even done collections of poems written by students.
Yeah, but like I said, we still come to, those aesthetic areas later on. But I asked a question about negotiation and contracting.
Well,
how do you go about that?
Most of the poetry festivals are not sponsored. So when you have a festival that's not sponsored, you can't be talking about negotiations and payments. Where do you get money to pay people when you are not sponsored? When you are living from hand to mouth to organize a festival?
So how do you ensure sustainability? Because money answers all things.
You see, passion is what is driving some of us to do what we're doing. If we have to consider money, we're not going to do anything. It's a passion. I tell people I live for poetry. And I tell people too that virtually all of us live for such things like poetry, music, romance, and all that. It is not that we're living for money. We only work to make money to sustain us. But in actual fact, we live for such things like poetry, music, dance, and all that. So it's that passion that makes me go out from time to time and say I'm organizing a poetry festival.
Okay, I'll let that slide. Passion, sustainability. It's still nebulous, if you ask me, because for some of us, maybe because of coming from the world of capitalism to a very large extent, and I understand sustainability in terms of how do you over time ensure that this venture is self-sustaining, monetary wise, so that you don't have to go around all the time looking for sponsorship or helpers and what have you. But since you have explained that money is not the focus and money is not even coming in to an extent where you'll be able to boast that this will be self-sustaining, then I'll let that aspect slide. But let me go to one area.
Because with some of those festivals, you are discovering talents and you are nurturing talents. So in some other climes, you expect such talents to pay you for the work you're doing for them. But no, we're not collecting money for anybody and they are not collecting money from us. So it's like a give and take thing, and so you sow seeds.
So I train you in a way, I nurture you, I nourish you, and then you perform pro bono at my events, kind of. Okay, now I understand that. How do you get the crowd into the hall? Like I said, I've been at some of your events and I've seen that they were very hugely successful. What strategies do you adopt?
Well, you reach out to the people.
But in our society, when people tend to be more interested in parties or game shows or things where freebies will be distributed or souvenir packs.
I agree with you. It's a very difficult thing to do in this society.
So how
getting people to arts events, it's pretty difficult.
Arts events, intellectual events, cerebral events.
I go through a lot of headache most times.
So tell us how you do it. What strategies have you been adopting?
Well, with these days of WhatsApp, use of WhatsApp messages, email, flyers, and so on. And, for what you have been doing over the years, people have known you to be one. And so that when you reach out to such people, they want to come. There are some ready audience. When they hear that you're doing a poetry festival, they want to come. I have a retired principal like that. In every of our festivals, he must attend.
So there's a pool that already exists.
Yes.
But I want to reckon that there are additions to those pools because, like I said, I've attended some of your events as a spy. And I've seen the kind of mammoth crowd that you bring on board, to witness.
What do you call that? Artistic espionage.
Well, and I hope that won't be the subject matter of one of your poems. because I don't trust you poetic aficionados, because before you know it now you go and do a poem about me. That I will not permit.
But we should do a poem to celebrate you someday, because you're also doing a great job.
Thank you. We like to say this is what is expected of every human being. You must impact your society before you drop.
That's true.
Before you drop the gloves.
That's true.
Thank you. On behalf of the crew, I say thank you for the commendation. Now, you have still not told us in specific time some of the other things you do. I'm aware that you have a way of mobilizing very young people to come into the. How do you get them to do that? Our young people, they rather go to a place where there is.
I go to their schools.
Okay.
I've been nurturing some students in different secondary schools, and I've done some poetry collections for some of those students in their schools. And so wherever I go, they want to go. So some of them have graduated from secondary school, they still come.
Okay.
Because they will never forget the fact that they were sleeping. I woke them up and I started the fire, and the fire is still burning.
Yeah.
And it will keep on burning. And so
that's taking them places.
So for that, when they hear we're doing poetry festivals, they want to come.
Okay.
And express themselves.
And they want to mobilize.
They also bring their friends.
Okay.
You find out that some of them have confessed openly that with poetry they have been able to express their feelings of pains, of love, hardship, and so on and so forth. And that by so doing, it gives them relief.
Okay.
Somebody even confessed that she was going to die, but for the fact that the inspiration came upon her, she wrote a poem. I mean, she forgot about death. So you see, you have been able to keep alive by so doing. I call that the therapeutic effect of poetry.
I agree.
Poetry is like medicine.
I can testify to that.
So you know, a lot of people.
It's like a medicine. It's also like what music does
to the soul.
To the soul.
So what we're doing with poetry is to perform and catch as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Bring them to the fold.
So when you go to their schools, what happens? You just tell the principals that you want.
Yes, I tell them I've come to do poetry in your school. I want to develop your students, and oftentimes some of the principals even know me. Some of the principals were teachers in the 80s when I started performing poetry. So some of them recognize me when they see me, and so they give me the opportunity to go ahead and do workshops, sessions with their students, seminars, and so on. And we've been catching them young.
We learned of your poetry enclave.
Yes.
Which serves like a kind of workshop, poetry village of some sort.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Well, I set up Poetry Enclave with the aim of encouraging the writing, reading, and performance of poetry.
Okay.
So not only is one supposed to write, one is supposed to read, and one is also supposed to perform. That is what makes poetry more fanciful to the people. And since the establishment of Poetry Enclave, the story has been good.
Okay.
The story has been the story of success. The story has been the story of a huge success.
So what do you do at the Enclave?
Poetry.
How do you mean?
Teaching people how to write poetry.
Okay.
Teaching people how to read or perform poetry.
What's the duration?
Well, once I burst into any area, within 1 week, you're expected to be writing poetry.
Because it's like a kind of boot camp.
We give you the ingredients. We tell you the ingredients that you have to put together for poetry.
What's your core target like in terms of age demography?
Even primary school students.
So when?
Secondary school students, university students.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you don't have that kind of restriction?
Poetry is cutting across all...
So as long as someone is interested?
That's it.
Good. So if I'm interested and I enroll to be at your boot camp?
Oh,
What
yeah.
am I going to be getting in specific terms?
Well, I will teach you first that if you want to begin to write, you have to begin to observe your society.
Okay.
You must be observant as a writer.
Keen
Observer. Because there's little things passing by that can form part of your story
Okay.
in terms of your writing.
Okay.
And so if you are not observant, too bad.
You won't have much
If you are
material.
traveling, yeah, then you might be in a bus with somebody whose wink or whose manner of talking could be more of an eccentric human being that will interest people when you are recounting that experience in your poem.
So the first thing is you have to be a keen observer.
You have to.
Do you train people in skills on how they can develop their observation?
Oh yeah.
Capacity.
Oh yeah. People do
So
that.
that's the first thing. What next?
What next? You have to be a good reader.
Okay.
It means that you have to read the poems of some other people, know their styles, know how they have maneuvered their lines. And for first timers, I tell them you're just like somebody who should be doing 100 meters. Don't bother to do 1,500 meters because you may not have the strength to go that far. So
do the 100-meter dash
it is about
and use that to build your muscles and your lungs.
Yes. Then eventually you can go that far, 1,005 meters.
How do you go about composing your poem? You as a poet.
Well, I get the inspiration. That's the first thing. I must be motivated. I must get a push. Something must strike me, and I begin to write. I could be reading a poem, and a line or a word could just strike in me some lines, and I just go ahead.
Okay. What other things inspires you?
Well, sometimes I miss friends while discussing issues of utmost importance. Something will just come and I just scribble some lines and I develop them later.
What else?
When I take some drinks.
Okay, like the wine that we're having now.
When I take some drinks.
So this is also part of the catalyst of the creative muse.
Yeah.
You've been able to identify the catalyst of your muse, as it were.
Yeah.
But interacting with other poets in the community, what are the items or totems or artifacts that you can point at that have served as veritable catalyst of creativity for other poets? Because people would like to know. Everybody should find what works for them.
Yes. Well,
some have said women is their own. Some have said nature is their own. Looking into the sky, looking into the moon, the stars, the ocean, the rivers. For some, it's going into the woods. For some, it's walking in the rain.
Yes, you're correct.
So
Different.
can you help us generate and expand the list?
Different people with different ideas and different feelings.
What resonates with your spirit will be different from mine.
Oh yes, nature. The rumbling of thunder has inspired people. The glorious moon in its full brightness has inspired people to write. The woods, like you said, considering Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. He's talking about nature, so that can also inspire. And as part of discussion, if, for instance, I'm discussing with you, and I naturally, unconsciously, or consciously, I render some lines unplanned for that sound musical that will inspire you. That will
you may
inspire
just
you.
love the rhythm and the rhyme.
Oh, that's why your biro and some paper must be in your pocket, and so you quickly do something, and you keep it, and the discussion goes on. And then with that, it's like an inspiration. It comes to you and it goes to millions of people all over the world.
At the same time.
So if you do not grab it at that point in time, it goes away and may not come back.
Coming up.
I like the writings of some Nigerian writers because they understand their local languages, a good grasp of their mother tongue. It helps to beautify the English language. Look at it. Go and be my eyes and my ears in things fall apart. The idea is that you should go
Now, you've touched on some of those things that can help one to develop one's creative muse. Can you also help us to talk about things that can help you to nurture your creative muse? I mean, catalyst, yes, we understand. But when something is catalyzed, for it to stay up or to keep going up, there has to be some form of nurturing.
Yes.
What are the things that can help one to do that?
Discipline. Let me look at discipline.
Discipline to do what?
To follow the rules.
The rules.
Yes, there are rules. For instance, we say that if an inspiration comes, quickly grab it. There are times that you just think that something is occurring to you, and you said, okay, I will take it later.
Okay.
Then you don't have that discipline. That discipline should be there for you to keep the rule. The rule is that grab it that moment and keep it.
But what about those who say that for you to be a good poet, you must have a good grounding in language?
Oh yes, it is not only just being a poet. You could be a prose writer. You could even be a dramatist.
So,
and that's why I like the writings of some Nigerian writers, because they understand their local languages, a good grasp of their mother tongue. It helps to beautify the English language. They decided the beauty of some of our writings is that we have been able to localize the English language. We have taken it from the domain of the Queen's English, and we have given it local spice, local flavor. We have given our English local color. It makes it more interesting when the white man is reading it. Look at it. Go and be my eyes and my ears in things fall apart. The idea is that you should go there and represent me. That's what it means.
Yeah.
But when you go and be my eyes and my ears, that's localizing English language, making it more beautiful. You know. So
and also spicing the worldview that you have brought into the English.
Yeah.
language.
So a good grasp of your mother's tongue is always very helpful in terms of your English expression. So if you think like a Yoruba man and you write in the English language, it's always better.
Between the two schools of thought, there are those who believe that poetry or literature generally, particularly poetry, should be for aesthetic purposes.
You should go beyond that.
And there are those who believe it should be functional.
Poetry is one of the genres of literature. It's just like drama or prose. It should reach out to an audience. It should touch them.
So you belong in a functional school of thought.
It has to be so. When you write, you should be touching lives there and getting feedback. That is how society grows. You must touch people and get a feedback from them, and they say, yes, we're getting something. It is not a deaf and dumb thing. I must speak to you, you must hear me, and you must get back to me. I must also hear you and respond.
Yeah, but what about those who argue that part of the function of poetry is to help the logicality of the mind, to soothe the mind, the way classical music or soulful music will soothe the mind and the soul, and that when you are able to successfully string beautiful rhymes, then you will have fulfilled majority of the purpose of poetry. Whether it passes a message that resonates with the audience or not, when the audience finds the rhyme, you're on your way to appeasing them, soothing them, and giving them aesthetic value, which also is critical.
It's important. It's important. If I do a piece of poem and I am able to refreshen the minds of some people, or refreshing their soul, that's a pass mark. But if I touch their souls and have passed a message to them, and they're going to build on that message to bring about progress into society, that's a better pass mark. That is it.
So you seem to be saying it's good to achieve aesthetic value.
Oh yeah. and
It's better to achieve
and also to build
functionality.
society. And to, yeah, that's the functionality is the building
It's
of
best to
society.
be both.
Yes, you have to build the society. I want to hear a piece of poem and I say, I want that poem to take me to music circle. Let me enjoy myself. And then I come out to say, wow, what is in there? That deep call.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, Lord, this is it. This is it. I want to jump. I said, that is the message. It is touching me.
It is touching me.
It means you are now giving back to the writer. That's the importance of it. I shouldn't just hear music and say, oh, lovely, lovely, and I go to sleep. What is lovely about it? I want to say lovely, and I want to wake up like I'm waking from slumber, and I said, oh, that is it. Got it. You see, I'm giving it back to the writer for him to know that he has touched me somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm giving him a feedback. That is building the society.
Even though you're not saying face to face, but
that's building the society.
Yeah.
It means that I'm going to react positively to the society. I'm building it. So he is the one helping to build the
human
society.
capital.
Yes, it's very important.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the fact that I write something and I think that to hell with my audience. If they don't understand, let them go to hell. It is their intellectual laziness. No, I'm not going to. No, I'm not going to. It means that I failed.
Wow. We also need to be cognizant, take cognizance of the fact that this program is about business, entrepreneurship, and of course, impact in the society, inspiration. So looking at it from the perspective of capacity, human capacity, human improvement, which you have touched upon a while ago, that poetry is part of the tools of improving the minds, the souls, the spirit, the behavior, disposition, and even the habits of the people who inhabit a milieu. So let's zero it down to business persons. How can they find poetry useful?
The businessman?
Yeah.
I'm in fact a businessman.
Yeah.
I've been able to use poetry to make money.
Yeah.
There has to be a business side of it. Otherwise, how do you sustain yourself? How do you take care of your family? So you must also think of the business side. The entertainment side is one, but the business side is the other.
So what would you be telling me if I invite you to come and give me a talk on the business side of poetry? I know you're holding back so much. You don't want to let us into the secrets of how you do this thing. Maybe you don't want competitors. Your poetry festival is another stream.
Yes.
The anthologies you publish and launch,
yes,
they are another stream.
That's
and
right.
Also sell in the bookshops, they are another stream.
Yes.
What other streams are available?
I do poetry, puppetry. I build my puppets and I perform to young people in primary schools, especially private primary schools.
Okay, like the puppet show.
Yes, to entertain them and to teach them some morals.
Yeah.
I do that. Sometimes the money comes from that area even more. Anywhere in the world, children's products, they sell better than adult products.
That's so.
If I'm doing the puppet show and I'm charging 300 naira and I have 100 pupils watching my show, that's 30,000 naira coming in.
So puppetry is another stream of income.
Yes.
Tell us the others.
Yes, I take part in drama productions.
Yeah, I know you got involved in drama production. You are a production director yourself.
Yes, I do sketches. I perform at functions. So these are the areas where money come in.
Yeah, which are the other areas? I know there are many more areas.
Those are the areas.
Mr. Ezeka, Anthony.
Those are the areas.
You're holding back so much. A final word.
Well, people should wake up from their slumber. People should know that for you to make 1,000 miles, it begins with a step. We live in a difficult terrain. Whatever idea we think of, we should try and make sure that they become reality. We move on and say no to whoever is going to pull us down. I usually do not think about the society when I'm doing things. Because if you think about the society from the beginning, you will fail.
So people should act on their conviction.
Go ahead.
Stop.
But make sure that you're on the right track. As far as you're on the right track, you're making progress, the society will now laugh. Well done. Well done. Well done.
Hilarious, but inspiring. I want to say a very big thank you, Mr. Ezeka Anthony. On that inspirational note, we'd like to call it wraps on this conversation. Has been so enlightening, and it's been so motivational, inspiring, educative, but most importantly, it's been emotionally stimulating for me, and I believe for many of our viewers out there. We've learned a thing or two, and we've also been emotionally titillated. Mr. Ezeka Anthony,
I thank you very much for making me sit on this hot seat.
I can feel any heat. All I can feel is pleasure and pleasure.
Literally speaking, hot, very hot.
Well, you say so. I will ponder on that.
Should I say, poetically speaking, very hot.
Well. I would just say that it's been a wonderful time having you.
It's
on
good
the
to be
program.
with you. I always enjoy your company.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
All right.
And we appreciate your coming.
Thank you very much.
On that note, we'd like to call it wraps on the program today. It's been wonderful being on this side, and I believe it's been the same way on the other side. Until next time,